This manuscript explores life, death, what lies beyond, all through the lens of classical physics. This process of exploration is a journey in itself, and we've already started on this journey by taking the first few steps in our previous sessions. In this session, let's explore how the communication occurs from one energy self to another, using the same energy that radiates through from one human to another. In our previous session, we discussed about this subtle form of communication that goes on between one human to another through the brain waves. If you haven't seen that session yet, be sure to watch it first. It will provide the necessary context. Now, we are so accustomed to our sensory mode of communication that it's practically impossible to recognize this other form of communication that may still be going on in subtle form behind the prominence of sensory mode of communication. However, there could still be few exceptional human beings who would be sensitive enough and attentive enough to detect and recognize this subtle form of communication. And for those cases, the perception of the subtle communication depend on few important aspects. And that is what is listed down here. The subtle communication is established only when certain conditions are met and certain stages are crossed. Stage one is when the effect of your energy self upon my energy self is resulting into change of flow of ions through my circulatory system, and when this change is not too weak due to the influence of weak magnetic field. Stage 2 is when change of flow of ions through the circulatory system of the body resulting into either increase or decrease of heart rate. Stage 3 is when change of heart rate is resulting into change of breathing pattern, increase or decrease of breathing rate, deep breathing, shallow breathing, hyperventilation, hypoventilation. Stage 4 is when my change of breathing pattern is driving change in my moods or emotions. Stage 5 is when my change of moods or emotions are driving changes in my behavior towards the current situation and driving changes in my decision making abilities as well. If the influence of the energy self is introducing these changes of these stages, then the receiving person is being able to perceive the subtle form of communication. Now, let's explore the conditions in which I won't be able to perceive what you are communicating through your energy self. First condition is when effect of your energy self upon my energy self is too weak. And such situation can occur if the receiving strength of magnetic field is weak. Now, as per the science behind this form of communication, the perception of the receiving signal demands either the influence of an exceptionally strong magnetic field or an exceptionally sensitive receiving system in the particular human being. Let's understand this a little bit more. In our previous sessions, we discussed about the brain waves against the overall spectrum of electromagnetic wave. And you might recall that the brain waves have lowest frequency range but highest wavelengths. And the wavelengths are like few thousands kilometers long. Now, while we were discussing on the receiving loop antenna in the previous session, you might recall that we discussed that effective receiving capability in the loop antenna demands the diameter of the loop to be of certain percentage of the wavelength of receiving electromagnetic wave. But in our human body, these circulatory loops are only few tens of centimeters long in diameter. So it is essentially a trivial percentage of the wavelengths of the brain waves. So receiving effectiveness of these brain waves are poor as per the design of the system. Now, besides this, there are a few other conditions and reasons due to which the receiving capability may be impacted, even for a case where sender's magnetic field strength is suitable. All these reasons point to a situation where the receiving system of the person is impacted, either due to lack of sensitivity to recognize the change of flow of ions in circulatory system, or due to certain situations or diseases that are making the circulatory system overwhelmed, or the cardio system overwhelmed, or the breathing system overwhelmed. So in general, some of these conditions are always true, and that's the reason receiving this subtle form of communication, perceiving it and recognizing it, becomes rare. Let's talk about this situation. Here, the effect from few people's superimposed energy fields can get cancelled due to the effect of other people's superimposed energy fields. And if these are matching the destructive interference conditions. So the diagram shows how that could get worked out through destructive interferences of several overlapping energy fields. The superimposition of all energy fields with their directionality, phase synchronization, or as saying an amplitude, all that gets considered. And then it could result into a nullified superimposed field at an overlapping position where the person in the middle is standing at this point. This situation emphasizes that certain formation of the gathering exerts more constructive influence to the people present, while some other formation of the gathering may not establish the same level of influence. Let's take a look at this formation. In this formation, a leader is standing in front of his followers. So the magnetic field of the leader standing at the front imposes over all followers' receiving system. And followers' magnetic field superimpose but substantially cancels each other's. So the effect of the communication of the leader increases in this formation. Now let's take a look at this formation. This is the formation of group collaboration. The people are kind of standing in a circle or standing in a rectangle form, and everybody's magnetic field imposed over everybody else's receiving system. Few magnetic fields would cancel each other's, and due to different phase and distances, the electromagnetic induction influence of one's magnetic field over others is not same. But effect of everybody's energy field over everybody else develop a harmonized thinking and communication. Isn't this how a boardroom meeting is conducted? Do you see the similarity of this formation? Now, let me offer you another intriguing example. Visualize a group of saints sitting across a rectangular yagna place and chanting mantras. The chanting of mantras bring a resonance to their breathing pattern. Resonated breathing pattern establishes a resonating heart rate, and resonating heart rate establishes radiation of same brain waves. Now, the effect of resonating brain waves to everybody will induce a change of flow of ions across everybody's circulatory system who are under the influence of this field. And that would essentially reduce the heart rate or prolong the span of stillness in between the cardioelectrical cycles. making everybody feel calm and contented. Another example of group collaboration. All right, this is as far as we would go in this session. But before we end this, here is an important reminder. Life is a beautiful and precious gift. It's so valuable that often the value is incomprehensible in the narrower context of few life experiences and situations. But it becomes comprehensible if the value of life is seen in much deeper and truer context. This effort attempts to capture that deeper and truer context for people who have scientific and logical bent of mind. The scientific elaborations here are basic in nature so that it becomes easier to comprehend. But the science behind life and beyond are much more intrinsic in nature, much more complex and subtle. So use this basic understanding to conceptualize the deeper and truer context of life. But please don't misuse these to carry out experiments on yourself or others. You and your conscience both are far more valuable than that. We will develop this line of thinking further in the subsequent sessions. Keep watching.